shout out to John A. Douglas and Daddy Warpig for bringing this to my attention. Also to Giant Freaking Robot for reporting on this. Exclusive. Krull reboot in the works. J.J. Abrams attached. Oh boy, this clown again. I knew this isn't the last time we would see that name. Let's see what this is about. If you're worried that J.J. Abrams wants to reboot everything you loved when you were younger, the good news is that not many people loved this movie until long after it was deemed a box office bomb. Our trusted and proven sources tell us that J.J. Abrams, the guy who helped revive the film franchises for Star Trek and Star Wars, is attached to direct a reboot of the 1983 sci-fi fantasy flop Krull for Warner Brothers. If you're not familiar with Krull, then depending on where you land, you're either missing out on a 1980s classic, or one day you can move on to the next life knowing at least 2 hours of your current life were spared, clearly hoping to ride the coattails of the bigger genre hits of the day. Krull is a sci-fi fantasy fusion with a simple fairy tale premise. The princess is kidnapped and the prince and his allies go on a quest to save her. Ken Marshall plays Chris Cullen, who wields the most visually memorable part of Krull, the five-pointed glaive. The film didn't exactly turn Marshall into a superstar, but it does feature appearances by at least two actors who will later become much more well known. Cowboy meets up with a group of bandits who he wins to his side. One is played by a very young Liam Neeson, and another is played by the late Robbie Coltrane. Rest in peace, Coltrane. You're still Hagrid to us, though his voice is dubbed over by Michael Elphick. Uh, Hopefully I spelled that correctly. Best known as Harry Potter's Hagrid. Critics hated Krull. Box office receipts failed to make back its 30 million production budget, and any dreams Ken Marshall may have harbored about becoming a blockbuster leading man were dashed. Years later, Marshall would earn himself a well-respected spot in the Star Trek franchise as Michael Eddington, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine character who begins as a recurring pain in the butt and eventually graduates to recurring villain. Shout out to Marshall for being successful. Warner Brothers and Krull. The news of Warner Brothers rebooting Krull with J.J. Abrams attached is interesting for a number of reasons, or a nightmare if you're looking at it. On one hand, it isn't Warner Brothers who produced the original film, but Columbia Pictures, which was acquired by, you guessed it, Sony 6 years later. Presumably, this news means Warner Bros. Must have quietly acquired the Krull rights from Sony. Well, I guess Sony can't get control of everything. We're also assuming that Abrams' attachment to the project must have began before the current WGA strike, which I hope still keeps happening because this stuff needs to keep happening. I'm happy it's happening. And not just because the strikes have slowed down, just about everything. Earlier this month, the Hollywood Reporter broke the news that Warner Bros. Has suspended its exclusive deals with a number of prominent producers, including Abrams. Even before the strike, there were reports that Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zalaz wasn't happy with the deal made with Abrams' bad reboot. Of course, suspended isn't the same as canceled, as the dual writers and actors strikes have made big question marks hover over everything in the entertainment world. When we have more news about the Krull reboot, we'll make sure you know about it. So basically, this hack, J.J. Abrams, who completely demolished um, Star Wars, he was the beginning part of it. Rian Johnson finished it. Personally, Krull is a classic movie that I enjoyed. The reason why it flopped is because it was very out there with its graphics at the time and all the stuff happening. Not everything's going to be successful, but it was still a good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and seeing as how it this is becoming. I mean, they're never gonna stop rebooting old classics, and hopefully, with Abrams out, which I'm hoping it's the case. Hopefully, Krull won't see production just yet, and hopefully it gets dropped with the current with the current WA strike and the actor strike. I'm glad that both of these happened because this really put a damper on everything that is bad with Hollywood, and I hope it continues. Needless to say, Abrams needs to stay away from other franchises because he really screwed over Star Wars. Comment below on what you think about this. I'm Anime 1992. I'll catch you all later.